Lo wasn't just a celebrity, he was the face of an era, a dancer, singer, actor, and television icon who built an empire from the ground up. He was adored by millions and trusted by more. But behind the flashing lights and boyish charm hid secrets that would shake an entire nation. When his long-term girlfriend exposed a hidden life of betrayal, cheating, and manipulation, everything crumbled, fast. This isn't just the story of a fall from grace. It's the story of an industry, a culture, and a man undone by his own image. Subscribe to Criminal Tracks for more shocking exposés like this. Before Lo became a household name across Asia, he was just a boy growing up in Keelung, Taiwan, raised by parents who were both entrenched in the entertainment world. His mother was a traditional Taiwanese opera singer, and his father was a local host and performer. From a young age, was immersed in the culture of showbiz, learning not just the craft, but also the weight of the spotlight. His early exposure made one thing clear. He wasn't just going to be a performer, he was going to be a star. That dream began taking shape in the late 1990s, when he entered the music industry through the boy band Four Heavenly Kings. Though the group was short-lived, disbanding after internal disputes and lackluster sales, didn't fade away like many would have expected. Instead, he used the experience as a stepping stone and pivoted to a solo career. He started appearing on variety shows, dancing competitions, and even comedy skits, proving that he wasn't just a singer but an all-around entertainer. The turning point came in the early 2000s, when he signed with Avex Taiwan and released his debut solo album. It wasn't an overnight success, but it laid the foundation for what would become an explosive rise. Show's strength was in dancing, often compared to global icons like Michael Jackson, and he quickly earned the nickname Asia's Dance King. His performances were electric, slick choreography, flashy costumes, and high energy that captivated fans across the region. He knew how to work a stage, but more importantly, he knew how to work a crowd. His albums began topping charts not just in Taiwan, but also in Hong Kong and mainland China. By 2005, he was no longer a local star. He was a regional icon. But music wasn't his only strength. Around the same time, Lo began taking roles in Taiwanese idol dramas, tapping into a booming market of romantic TV series aimed at teenagers and young adults. His breakout role in Hi My Sweetheart, opposite Rainy Yang, became a cultural phenomenon, earning him accolades and expanding his fan base even further. While his acting was occasionally critiqued for being over the top, his on-screen charisma made it impossible to look away. He had tapped into a formula that worked. A little bit of vulnerability, a lot of humor, and a well-managed image of the charming boy-next-door type. That image became his currency, and he spent it wisely. At the same time, his television career took off in a different direction. As a variety show host, Lo found a new niche where he could be himself, or at least the version of himself the public adored. He was goofy, self-deprecating, witty, and quick on his feet. Shows like 100% Entertainment became synonymous with his name. In a space often dominated by older, more seasoned hosts, brought youth, spontaneity, and modern humor. It wasn't just about interviewing celebrities, it was about making every appearance a memorable moment. He turned segments into viral sensations before viral was even a concept widely used in Asia. And while many entertainers struggled to balance multiple careers, juggled them effortlessly. One week he'd be promoting an album, the next he'd be filming a drama, and the week after that he'd be making audiences laugh on live TV. By the late 2000s and early 2010s, Lo had become a brand unto himself. He endorsed everything from clothing to electronics to skincare products. His face was plastered across billboards in Shanghai, Tokyo, and Taipei. He launched his own fashion label, STAGE, which catered to his massive fan base and reflected his flashy yet accessible style. Unlike other celebrities who kept their distance from the commercial world, leaned into it, appearing approachable yet aspirational, a rare duality in the image-driven world of Asian stardom. What made this era particularly impressive was how unscathed he remained by scandal. In an industry where rumors, paparazzi, and rivalries often tore careers apart, Sholo seemed untouchable. He was considered hardworking, humble, and respectful, especially toward his fans. Stories circulated of him rehearsing late into the night, giving gifts to staff members, and quietly helping junior entertainers get their break. Even when asked about his personal life, he managed to sidestep controversies with charm and humor. It seemed as though he had cracked the code: stay visible, stay likable, and stay clean. And for a while, that strategy worked perfectly. He continued releasing albums that did well commercially, even if critics didn't always embrace them. His tours sold out across Asia. His talk show segments remained a staple of Taiwanese television. He maintained an active presence on social media, where he shared just enough to keep fans engaged, but never enough to stir gossip. The public saw him as a model celebrity, multi-talented, hardworking, and scandal-free. Grace Chow, his long-term girlfriend, remained a quiet figure in the background, rarely mentioned, rarely photographed, and mostly unknown to fans. It was a deliberate choice, and for years it seemed to protect both of them. Behind the scenes, of course, no one knew what storms were quietly brewing. But from the outside looking in, Sholo had reached the pinnacle of fame that so many aspired to, but few ever achieved. He wasn't just a pop star or a TV host or an actor. He was a symbol of modern Asian entertainment. A man who built an empire with sweat, strategy, and a carefully maintained smile. The kind of star who seemed too big to fall. And yet, as history has shown time and time again, the higher the pedestal, the more catastrophic the fall. The illusion shattered on April 23, 2020, when Grace Chow published a seismic social media post that would upend not only her relationship, but also the career of one of Asia's biggest stars. In a sharply worded message, Grace accused Sholo of a staggering list of betrayals: chronic infidelity, emotional manipulation, and organizing sex parties involving multiple women, some of whom were allegedly his assistants or female celebrities he worked with. She didn't name names, but the implications were explosive. The post was not some vague allusion to a breakup. It was a scorched earth letter that left little to the imagination. Fans and netizens across China, Taiwan, and beyond were stunned. The man they had idolized for over 2 decades, who had always appeared loyal and respectful, was now being painted as a master manipulator living a double life. Social media erupted. The post received millions of likes, shares, and comments within hours. The Chinese online community, known for its unforgiving scrutiny, swiftly turned against Sholo. Old interview clips were dug up where he'd awkwardly dodged questions about dating. Footage from variety shows was reanalyzed, this time through the lens of betrayal and suspicion. People began connecting dots that once seemed innocent. Sudden camera cuts, flirtatious interactions, vague comments about his private life. All of it became part of a larger narrative. This man had fooled everyone. For a brief moment, there was hope he might explain himself. And he did, sort of. His public apology came quickly, but lacked the depth and remorse the public was hoping for. It felt cold, calculated, almost like a press release. He admitted to mistakes, but didn't directly address the more shocking accusations. In the vacuum of clear accountability, speculation filled the void. The names of rumored mistresses began circulating online. Some claimed female co-hosts of his variety shows were involved. Others speculated about young trainees he had mentored. The ambiguity made it worse. It left room for hysteria, and soon it spiraled into a full-blown witch hunt. The industry responded just as swiftly. Brand deals were dropped overnight. Advertisements were pulled. Variety shows deleted entire episodes featuring him. His upcoming projects were canceled or shelved indefinitely. In China's entertainment world, where public perception is everything, Sholo became radioactive. Television stations that once profited from his appearances now pretended he had never existed. The backlash wasn't just moral, it was economic. Investors pulled out. His fashion brand Stage suffered significant losses. Once a marketing magnet, Lo had become a liability. But this wasn't just another cheating scandal. This was a cultural rupture. Grace Chow's post became a rallying cry for women who had been wronged by powerful men. She was hailed as brave, unfiltered, and, for many, a hero. Her accusations weren't just about infidelity, they were about emotional abuse, gaslighting, and entitlement. She claimed Lo had even taught his male friends how to cheat without getting caught, turning him into a symbol of everything toxic about male celebrity culture in Asia. The consequences extended far beyond the entertainment industry. Think pieces flooded news sites about the culture of celebrity worship, the commodification of image, and the hypocrisy that thrives behind it. Social media platforms launched campaigns discussing healthy relationships, consent, and psychological manipulation, all triggered by one woman's Instagram post. It became a moment of reckoning for an industry that often thrives on silence and image control. Meanwhile, Lo attempted a soft comeback months later by releasing a somber black and white video of himself discussing lessons learned. It was framed as an apology and a reflection. He talked about hurting the people he loved, losing everything, and facing the consequences of his actions. But the timing, tone, and delivery struck many as self-pitying rather than sincere. Critics called it a calculated PR move. Others mocked it as a last-ditch effort to save face. Still, some fans remained loyal. In Taiwan, his native base of supporters softened over time, pointing out that while his actions were deplorable, they were also human. After all, this was a personal scandal, not a crime. But the broader public wasn't ready to forgive. The betrayal had been too deep, too public, and too thorough. Lo had sold an image of respectability and devotion for over 2 decades. What made the scandal so devastating wasn't just the cheating, it was the dismantling of a narrative people had believed in and loved. What's more, the scandal revealed just how tightly wound the machinery of stardom truly is. Lo's team had worked for years to keep his private life off the radar. Contracts with assistants reportedly had non-disclosure clauses. Paparazzi who attempted to follow him were often met with stone walls. The illusion of perfection had been maintained with surgical precision, but all it took was one social media post to rip it apart. Perhaps most ironic was the way Lo's own fame accelerated his downfall. His face was everywhere, and now his disgrace was too. News sites across Asia couldn't stop reporting on him. Each new rumor, each denial or confirmation reignited the flames. Even fans who had no prior interest in his love life were suddenly watching the implosion in real time. He became a cautionary tale told across generations. How one moment of exposure could unravel decades of work. Even as other celebrities in the region faced similar accusations and bounced back, Lo's case stood out for its sheer scale. The intimacy of the betrayal, the length of the deception, and the calculated image he had sold to the public made forgiveness far more complicated. It wasn't just a scandal, it was a public trial in the court of social morality. And by all measures, he had lost. In the aftermath of the scandal, Lo vanished from the public stage like a magician, whose final trick had failed disastrously. The man who once graced every screen, billboard, and concert venue across Asia disappeared almost overnight. Reports surfaced that he was battling severe depression, facing not just the collapse of his professional empire, but the alienation of the very audience that had once adored him. For a celebrity so rooted in fan culture, this silence wasn't just absence, it was exile. And unlike other public figures who rebounded after time away, faced a different landscape. The internet, which had once boosted his fame, now archived his downfall in meticulous detail, making it nearly impossible to return without confrontation. His first attempt to re-emerge came quietly. He posted on social media, speaking of self-reflection and pain, saying he had learned from his mistakes. There was no fanfare, no media blitz, just a simple message meant to open the door a crack. But the reception was icy. For many, it was too little, too late. The wounds hadn't healed. The image of betrayal was still too fresh. Shou tried again months later with a YouTube video. More polished, more emotional. He spoke slowly, with deliberate pauses, reflecting on how his actions had hurt people, particularly Grace Chow. But critics immediately dissected the video, calling it insincere, rehearsed, even manipulative. It didn't help that the timing aligned with a minor business announcement, leading some to believe it was a rebranding strategy rather than a heartfelt confession. Nevertheless, Shou didn't completely retreat. He began hosting small events in Taiwan. Low-key, local, almost humble by his former standards. Gone were the stadium tours and television prime slots. Instead, he performed for niche crowds, loyal fans who had stuck with him through the scandal. He also released new music. While the sales were nowhere near his peak years, they showed that a fragment of his audience still existed. But in mainland China, where much of his fame and income had been concentrated, he remained blacklisted. Networks refused to feature him. Brands avoided association. Public sentiment there hadn't softened. In fact, any sign of his reappearance sparked renewed anger online, often trending within hours. Behind these mixed signals was a man trying to rebuild, both personally and professionally. Friends reportedly described him as deeply changed, more reserved, less flamboyant, and hesitant to trust the media again. He rarely gave interviews, avoided large-scale appearances, and focused on staying under the radar. But this quiet life came with its own costs. For someone who had spent decades in front of cameras, fading into obscurity was its own kind of punishment. Not by force, but by silence. The Shou story, by this point, had morphed into something larger than just a cheating scandal. It had become a cultural litmus test. How far can a celebrity fall before redemption becomes impossible? Was the public being too harsh, or was this accountability long overdue? Grace Chow, meanwhile, had risen from the ashes, launching new ventures and becoming a symbol of female empowerment. While she never publicly retaliated beyond her original post, her silence in the years that followed spoke volumes. She didn't need to say more. His collapse had already validated her words. Analyzing Shou's journey, it becomes clear that this was never just about sex or betrayal. It was about trust. The entertainment industry in Asia operates on the illusion of purity, perfection, and moral superiority. Fans don't just buy music or watch shows. They invest emotionally in personas. Shou had marketed himself as the boyfriend figure, the charming goofball with a golden heart. To discover that the reality was riddled with deception shattered more than just his image. It shattered the idea that such personas were even real to begin with. There's also a sobering reflection on fame itself. Shou was once seen as untouchable. His versatility, humor, and talent placed him in a rare tier of multi-hyphenate performers. But fame, it turns out, is incredibly fragile. It takes years to build, but only seconds to destroy. And in the digital age, destruction is permanent, archived, and recirculated endlessly. Every meme, every takedown post, every sarcastic comment becomes part of the celebrity's legacy. Shou didn't just lose jobs, he lost the story that once defined him. Yet, the aftermath also questions the morality of cancel culture. Was Shou's exile a necessary act of public justice? Or did it cross into personal destruction? He apologized. He stepped back. He paid the price financially, emotionally, and socially. But the gates to true redemption never really opened. In the eyes of many, especially in mainland China, he remains unforgivable. Not because of one mistake, but because the betrayal felt too intimate, too hypocritical, and too carefully hidden. As of today, Shou exists in a liminal space. No longer a superstar, not quite forgotten. He continues to release content for a much smaller audience, often ignored by major outlets and dismissed by critics. but his story still lingers in the background of every new scandal in the region. Whenever a new celebrity is exposed, his name trends again. Don't Be Like Sholo has become a cultural shorthand for deceitful behavior. Ultimately, the man who once danced at the center of Asia's pop stage now walks a quiet, uncertain path. Whether he ever finds his way back remains to be seen. But his rise and ruin serve as a cautionary tale, not just about personal failure, but about the impossible expectations we place on public figures, and how quickly admiration can turn to fury when the truth comes to light. Sholo's story is a haunting reminder of how easily fame can become a trap, and how quickly the world turns when truth surfaces. His rise was a testament to talent. His fall, a reflection of the public's demand for honesty. Whether redemption ever arrives remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. The scandal didn't just end a career, it broke a fantasy millions believed in. In the world of celebrity, perfection is a performance. And sometimes, the curtain falls too late. If you want more raw, unfiltered stories from the underbelly of fame, don't forget to subscribe to Criminal Tracks.